Canada thinks we're fighting a trade war with them. That's not the case here. This is a drug war.
Hold up. So it has nothing to do with us being the 51st state. It has nothing to do with our trade deficit. It had everything to do with fentanyl the whole time. And you wonder why we couldn't figure it out exactly? Today, folks, I am convinced now with Trump, it's more fluff than it is impact as the US market fully recovers from the cataclysmic event that happened over the weekend that is the tariff wars that stopped me in my track and prevented me from doing civil human being things like getting a damn haircut. But my goodness, I have been buying the dips here in Canada. I picked up some Canadian dividend stocks. We're going to discuss some Canadian earnings, US earnings. So if you're on the path to financial independence, if you damn well one day want to retire early, you're joining me through these cataclysmic, insane events, hit that subscribe, guys. Let's do this together and hit that like just to inspire me to get a haircut. So let's get into this because I got some funny clips I got to share with you about this political insanity. But let's look at the markets first into the close today. Obviously with Nvidia, some of the tech companies still trading down a little bit, but they're all rallying after hours. Meta hit all-time highs today. Palantir is crushing it after earnings, really showing that we are truly still in a perpetual bull market. On the Canadian side of the border, it's not as justified yet until we really get through the trade deals or what the hell's going on here, because the Canadian banks got slaughtered today. They dropped as much as 7 to 10%. They bounced. The hardest impact so far were Canadian Imperial, Bank of Nova Scotia. We saw earnings in the railways that got hit pretty hard with Canadian National, which we'll talk about toward the end of this video. And I think that's the combination of tariffs and the combination of earnings bringing the stock down with double impacts. The crypto markets, the speculative markets, oh my God, man, they've been trading this insanity like in real time, really showing you that the news, the price action of crypto follows the news, right? And from hitting a low of, I think, almost 91 to now back over 101, astounding. And look at the after hour green. Woo, baby. My goodness, look at this. S&P's up 0.5 percentage point here. Meta's back over 700. I mean, Telus did great today after hitting some lows. I should have bought that. That would have been a great dip buy. Tesla is still actually not really fully back from where the lows that it hit. But look at this. This is insane, right? Like Aduro's going good here. Hood is fully recovered. Look at the man. Palantir is about to touch $100 in after hours, with the exception of Ethereum, my God, and the Canadian banks. But let's just boil this down to what has been causing it and why we now have some certainty in the market is I believe the adults have finally stood up behind Donald Trump. How you support the guy's tweets, I will never know, but take a listen to this.
The difference between Mexico and Canada thus far is that Canada thinks we're fighting a trade war with them. That's not the case here. This is a drug war. And I think it's important that if Canadian citizens themselves can understand that what we are trying to do here is stop the killing of Americans by these dead.
Hold up. So it has nothing to do with us being the 51st state. It has nothing to do with our trade deficit. It had everything to do with fentanyl the whole time. And you wonder why we couldn't figure it out exactly. Am I missing something here, or did the real gentleman of the U.S. political Oval Office finally stand up and say, hey guys, this just really has everything to do with fentanyl? Mexico figured it out. Why can't you figure? I wonder why we can't figure it out. You know, we've got friggin' Doug Ford tearing up the Starlink contract with Elon Musk, and then Elon tweets, oh well. And you got to tell me there isn't a conflict of interest here with Elon being involved politically this much, losing all these global contracts. I mean, you really think that the US is the largest market for Tesla? It's absolutely not, and Elon knows it. So why does he get involved with all this shitting on all these other countries when China's their biggest partner for growth in the future? And I just don't get how, you know, these Tesla shareholders are sitting idly like thinking this is fine. This is why Tesla stock should be trading down below the 100s at this point. I'm just blown away by all of this. Like, your jaw should be on the floor that this is the state of politics today. That it takes a video like this coming out right after our premier said, F it, we're done. We're cutting off all these trade deals, all this business. I think we should just rip those contracts up anyways, regardless of how we get through these next trade deals. That's why I can't be in office, because I'm stubborn. And obviously I'm mostly invested in the US markets. So I'm being kind of, hyperbolic as usual here, but it's been really hard to trade these markets as a Canadian investor because Our Canadian dollar has been so volatile, it dropped dramatically, it recovered dramatically. So even if you invested and you transferred money, like the trade currency conversions really messed up any of the recovery unless you took on some outsized risk. So I really just took the simplest investment today and I bought VDY because it dropped nothing huge. I mean, 1.26% is nothing, but my guess is, like most of the US markets, that this will fully recover by the end of the week, presuming we get through these trade discussions. Who really knows? At this point, I just can't wrap my head around it or put any real emotional effort toward it because we just don't know and we can't speculate on it, right? But hey, why not buy a little bit of the dip on something you like, and then we'll just see what happens from there. So if we take a look at the broader markets, however, it's crazy to think that in the midst of this crazy trade war where a lot of earnings, where companies would have to answer to these tariffs, including companies like Toyota that are posting this week that said they would halt production until they could figure something out because Mexico and Canada are largely responsible for things like Ford's motors and their F-150s and trucks, and Toyota's cars. A lot of the manufacturing of parts get done here in Canada through Magna and some of these other companies, BMW, like a lot of car parts get manufactured in these countries, right? And then if you take a look, I mean, Palantir just posted, we'll talk about that in a moment. PayPal's coming up, Pfizer, there's Alphabet I can't wait for tomorrow. This is going to be exciting. We have Bell coming up, Hershey, that could give more insight into the commodity cocoa crisis. The telecom giants will be interesting because I think BCE was actually green today as well. So again, super, super exciting week overall. As mentioned, the banks, and I think this had more to do with Trump's statements that he's kind of annoyed that basically Canada just won't allow US banks to come in, but then we kind of slapped back and said I think that we do have some involvement with United States banks here in Canada, but nonetheless the bank and the financial sector got ripped. I mean, they dropped 11% coming into open and then recovered a bit, with CIBC and BNS getting hit the hardest. But putting those aside, the only earnings we do have some light on, we'll start with Canadian National Railway. We'll talk a little bit about Palantir that I've been wickedly wrong on. Palantir, man, you shareholders just won't stand back on those valuations. I still think it's a really heated stock, but we'll get into it because Canadian National Railway could be a good buying opportunity first and foremost. I think what a lot of people are concerned of is their expenditures are kind of getting put toward capex at this point, from my understanding. The revenues decreased 3%. There's just been nominal to no growth at all from this company. With an outlook basically through 2025, they're expecting to deliver about 10 to 15% earnings per share growth. And if that is the case, I mean, you could potentially say it's a buying opportunity here. Time will tell because the stock's been absolutely clobbered over the last year. If we dig into the earnings a little bit more, I'm concerned with where their expenditures are going because you'd think the stock is cheap, yet the company's completely cut off dividend repurchasing, share repurchasing overall. They did, however, increase the dividend year over year quite substantially, but they're not buying shares back anywhere near close to what they were doing in the past. So you're going to have to do a deep dive yourself. Let me know what you think about Canadian National Railway because I think all the attention these days is going to be on Google, Palantir, these AI plays. Palantir, absolutely skyrocketing into after hours, just barely tapping that $100 range. And a lot of this has to do on the earnings they posted with basically 30% year over year. And this is what analysts were guiding for. Customer count grew 39% and basically 6% quarter over quarter. I love that they always pump the headline that the US markets grew by 44%. I wish the revenue, people get confused between the revenue and US revenue, but total revenues were up 30%, which was pretty good. Cash from operations were up 58%, representing 58% margins, and adjusted free cash flow was up 60%. These numbers are absolutely astounding. It is still not a company that I could play with the current numbers because I don't understand it well enough, and I've been proven to have lost out on substantial gains because of my lack of understanding of this company. I mean, if you just take a look at the growth here, it is very incredible. It is like really great growth, and they're continuing to put money behind marketing. They're still getting a lot of their return off some of the net interest income here, making up not the bulk of obviously their income, but still a decent chunk of their net income here. Again, these numbers still don't get that exciting to me. I really feel like this is a company that could really, by leaps and bounds, add to the bottom line like there's no tomorrow, because they still need some absolutely substantial growth to justify an almost $200 billion market cap for a company, again, that's barely producing 150 in net income a quarter and, getting to a couple $1 billion in annual revenue. I mean, it is a hefty value that I think is still being traded up by a lot of hype. But again, it could prove me wrong if the revenues continue to grow and the company continues to crush. Like I said, this is one that I do not mind watching other people make really great gains on. A little jealous that I missed it, but it comes from my lack of understanding that you might have a better understanding of. So I'd love to hear about it in that comment section below. I'd love to know how you survived the weekend. Tell me it all. I've been enjoying the conversation. So stay cool, stay awesome. And as always, I look forward to catching you in the next one.